Hey everybody, welcome to the Low Ground podcast. To the 1.5 people watching this. Today is the anniversary of Star Wars, retroactively called Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. We're not actually recording it on the anniversary, but I'll be releasing it then. It's been how many years at this point? 43, I
40?
believe? 42 years
Yeah.
since it came out?
Something
Somewhere
like
around
that.
there.
Empire was released 3 years after.
Yes, I think it's been
So,
40.
yeah.
I think 43 years since,
Wow.
and so we're just
Pretty
gonna be
nice.
kind of looking back on it and giving our thoughts on it. So there's 6 of us here, I think, and so we're all gonna go around and kind of tell our personal experience with the first time we watched this movie because we've all had pretty different experiences. Some of us watched it in the past couple months. Some of us watched it over a decade ago, and so yeah, I'll go first. So when I was 6 years old on my birthday, I was able to see this movie. It was my first Star Wars movie. It was one of the first like big action movies I've seen, live action as well, and it just blew me away. Honestly, it was a really cool experience. As of today, it's still one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'll still go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, my story is pretty similar to that. Yeah, when we were 6 years old, our dad would watch it with us. He always got, what was it, Sunkist or Fanta?
I remember, yeah, I drank so much Sunkist that day.
No, he brought down Sunkist. We went to the basement and just watched it. That was the same way we watched episode 1 and 2 as well. But
Yeah.
he also gave us I think he gave you a plush Darth Vader. He gave me a plush Boba Fett before we watched.
Yeah,
It's just a cool
I
thing to
still have
remember. And we always watched Star Wars movies on our birthday, so that was something to look forward to every year. That's just my experience.
definitely made it special because that was the first one we were 6.
Yeah, and then it made it special both ways because our birthdays were then associated with Star Wars, and Star Wars was then associated with our birthdays. Anyway, yeah.
All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go. So, honestly, until we got Disney Plus about 2 months ago, all I knew about Star Wars was Darth Vader is Luke's dad. There's Luke and Han and Leia and Chewbacca, and there's Anakin and Anakin is Darth Vader, and that's about all I knew. And then I actually, which I probably shouldn't have, I watched A New Hope after I watched the prequels, which probably wasn't the best, but I honestly really loved it my first watch, and I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan now, so I'm really happy that I got to see
Joined
that.
us.
Starting with the prequels is obviously not commended, but you came to the light eventually, so it's okay.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
all fine. It's in chronological order, so it's
That's
really not that big of a deal. You're not watching it 7, 8, 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, 6, or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grady or Casey or Ryan, when do you guys want to share your first experiences?
Yeah, I'll go. So honestly, I've never really been super into anything fan basey. Honestly, Harry Potter probably, but I've always kind of avoided Star Wars because I always just had kind of I don't know, notions about it that were founded in something not true. But I was just I just always associated it with nerds and stuff. But a couple months
Which I
ago,
proudly identify myself as. I am a nerd.
Yeah, me too.
And then, so a couple of months ago, same thing. I got Disney Plus and I watched all movies in chronological order, so it's probably not the best way, but again. It's when I watched A New Hope, I had already just seen the prequels, so that my first reaction was, "Wow, the effects aren't as good." But then,
Yeah.
as I watched it, I was like, "Well, this story is so much better, though." And even at the second time I watched it, I was blown away by what a good story it was. And I kind of fell in love with it as one of my favorite movies. Probably I would say my favorite movie out of all of them.
Well, I mean, it was pioneering. It's something that had never been done before. It was just this completely new concept, and it was just so groundbreaking at the time.
And that's kind of a dying art as well because you don't see as many of the space fantasy movies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get on
To
to its
revisit
legacy
it
in a
all
little
these years
bit.
later is just as special. It's like we're witnessing the magic all over again.
Ryan or Grady, how about you guys?
My first experience watching the movie was just this week. It was I really loved it. I started with the prequels too, but yeah, coming into it, I didn't really know what to expect, you know, because I just watched the prequels and I knew like really the base stuff that you need to know, but I didn't really expect it to be that good. I was like so surprised. I was like, this is
Hey,
insane.
it's
You know,
not
like
that
it's
You
awful.
so
know,
good.
I'd like to
I
say I
never.
was a super annoying watching partner for A New Hope
Yeah.
because I paused it like every other second and I was explaining. I'm like, okay, do you get what just happened here? So
I was
here,
like,
he
yeah.
said this, which is
I was like, yeah, man.
like, do you know the
Payson
significance of
is
this scene?
confirmed that guy.
Yes, I am that guy.
He
Like,
is
do you
that
know
guy.
the value of this scene in the Star Wars mythos and how this leads into other character arcs?
Yeah.
That's the thing about we watched all of the movies before we watched 9, which was actually really cool because I haven't seen a lot of them in a while. But we watched them all, and just rewatching all of them, knowing the extended lore that's happened since they came out, like with the wars and with Legends books and stuff, knowing all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes and stuff, with how the story and the universe is really developed. It's been really cool to go back and really, like you said, see the value in all the different scenes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey Ryan, how about you? What was your first
So
time watching New Hope?
my first experience was about like 4 to 6 years old. I actually haven't watched it yet, but I was like, I really love the movie, and I just wanted to keep watching more. And then my dad said we were watching like, and then we got to episode 5, and he said you can't watch episode 6 yet, and I was so upset just because
Oh
how
man.
You watched
amazing
the
it was.
flashback order, right?
Oh, I
Yeah,
think we watched Machete Order. Machete Order is actually a pretty great order, actually.
yeah.
I think next time I should do that because we watched in release date order. But I think it would like for as far as being immersed in the story, I think it might be a good job or a good idea to do that too. I do that next time.
Because you get like introduction to Luke and stuff, then you get flashback to see you learn that Vader's Luke's father, and then you see how it all happened, and then you get the climax, which is 6. So
That's
Yeah.
this is pretty interesting. We got a bunch of people here. I saw it 10 years ago, and Grady saw it this week. So we have like such
Yeah.
a difference of perspectives, and so we're really going to be able to talk about this movie in a cool way. So
Yeah, I'm
I
excited.
just thought I didn't have a ton of things we could talk about, like I said, but one thing I wanted to bring up was how this movie holds up today. And one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that a lot of the stuff that you see on Disney Plus, on TV, on the DVD copies, most of it is remastered footage. Some of the stuff was redone. George Lucas is obviously famous for making multiple changes to his movies.
Greedo
So
did not shoot first.
Yes, that is true. I've never gotten my hands on like a classic VHS 1977, I think it was 77, a tape of it, and I've always wanted to. But how do you guys think this movie holds up today? Because we're in a time where movies like this don't really exist anymore.
Yeah, I
Honestly,
think that.
yeah. Go ahead, Grady.
I think that it. I think that it still has a pretty wide fan base because, like you said, not like movies like this aren't made anymore. You know,
They've
Yeah.
come
so
over.
like people kind of like use these to like look back, and even if it's not just like to watch the movie, a lot of people would probably watch it just like sentimental value. Like when I was a kid, I watched this and like, you know.
One thing that George Lucas did, which is why the film is so highly regarded as it is because he was friends with Joseph Campbell, and Joseph Campbell is famous for writing a book called, I think it was called A Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he did a study and came up with a theory that every single story hits the same beats, and every hero has the same kind of journey. And
Oh,
so
the hero's journey.
Yeah, so Lucas took that and intentionally put it into A New Hope, and that's why I think it's so well structured. I
Yeah.
think the
Wow.
characters are also great.
And one thing I will say about the originals, and especially after seeing the prequels and the sequels, um, the originals are definitely not as flashy or showy, like in your face as the new movies and the prequels. So, so I can see how, like Grady said, he watched the prequel, or I think Casey said it, watched the prequels first, and he saw the decline in the the
Quality.
special effects and stuff. I think the special effects were so groundbreaking for the time. And the story is like obviously historically
Timeless.
good.
The story is timeless. Okay,
Yeah.
I will argue that.
Right. It's just the actual content, the overall structuring of the originals as a whole what makes it so timeless, and I think that's why it's been able to age so well despite not having the most cutting edge technology as of right now.
Yeah. See, you were talking about the effects, and before it was remastered several times, I don't think that people really realized that almost all of the effects were miniatures and like practical effects. Like I'm pretty sure that the crawling fortress, the Jaws crawling fortress, that was a miniature.
Which is
And,
pretty
like,
cool because that still
yeah.
looks good today.
It's
Um,
yeah.
Was that the AT-ATs in episode 5 were stop motion, I think.
That is
Yeah.
some of the best
Yeah.
stop motion I've ever seen. We'll do an episode 5 episode. We'll talk about that more in depth.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
But yeah, I do
Yeah.
think that what made the original so great was because a lot of the special effects were actually real. Like one thing that bugs the crap out of me about movies like the prequels and the Hobbit movies, some of the Avengers movies, is that they're so oversaturated with CGI, they start to look
Yeah.
fake after a while. Whereas with the New Hope, episode 5, episode 6 especially, you go, wow, that looks real. Why?
Mhm.
Because it actually
It
is
is
real.
real, right?
Yeah,
Prac-
it still
it's-
holds up.
Yeah.
Almost all the effects are practical.
Then you go to the prequels where almost the opposite is true, where so much more technology was coming out at the time. I think this is like roughly around the same time as like Avatar, stuff like that, where tons of new like CGI stuff is being developed and stuff.
Not really, no. The last prequel was made in 2005. Avatar came out in 2009. I'm pretty sure Lucas just kind of wanted to show off all the cool technology back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Unfortunately, I think the only prequel that looks good with the CGI is Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
I think that episodes 1 and 2, I think it was a lot of just like, we have this technology, let's use it.
Hey, look
And
at
I
it.
don't really think that they paid a lot of attention to practical applications for the technology.
Yeah.
Another reason why I think
we have green screens, but we don't use them.
But we don't use them.
another thing I really liked about A New Hope that I think that very much rivals both the prequels and the sequels is how well written the characters are.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Yeah,
remember watching
I
it,
agree.
hearing the banter back and forth between Han and Leia, the introduction
Yeah.
to all of them, having Luke become this like whiny, nervous kid in the later series arc.
Yeah.
I just think that the interactions between all the characters is what really brings up the movie. Like everyone talks about Ewan McGregor, but I think that Alec Guinness freaking nails it as Obi-Wan.
He really does.
As an older Obi-Wan, plus he doesn't have like McGregor had what Guinness was as Obi-Wan to like go off of, like what he
Yeah.
will become. But Guinness didn't really have that. Like he just had, you're this dude, and I think you're right. He absolutely nailed that. But he doesn't really get as much recognition as McGregor because he doesn't really have as much screen time or character development in the originals. But
Yeah.
It's so weird. Yeah, you're right. He weirdly enough, he was in way less scenes, but he's such an integral character. Anyways, go ahead.
No, that's about it. Like, I mean, I think that originals Obi-Wan is loved by fans, but not as recognized by fans as prequel Obi-Wan.
Well, to be fair though, the prequels were in a lot of areas less than stellar, and so good acting like Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi there really
It
kind
really
of
shined.
it shined a lot more.
Yeah, you just kind of want to cling to what's good because there's like, and the prequels weren't bad. I'm just gonna say that. There are mistakes, but I think with McGregor being probably, I would say, the biggest bright spot, obviously he's easy to cling to for fans.
Yeah,
Who
for
do you
sure.
guys have like a favorite character in A New Hope? I have a hard time deciding between Obi-Wan and Han. After watching it recently, I couldn't stop smiling because of how good Harrison Ford's performance was as Han. I miss Han so much in the new movies, you know.
No,
Yeah.
Han was probably my favorite part of the sequels, and he was only in there for one movie.
So sad.
But I would say my favorite character is probably Han. But I think Luke, his character isn't my favorite in this movie. How he's portrayed is really good for his arc. Because he at first just wants to get off this rock. Like Yoda talks about how luminous beings are and how this crude matter. All Luke can think about first movie is becoming a pilot, getting off the planet, like much like Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just the way he
I
develops.
mean, Luke really doesn't get his moment to shine character-wise until I'd say episode 5. He obviously has his moments, like the trench run, which I definitely want to make a point to talk about. I want to talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
the Death Star assault, which is such an amazing scene. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was
would say
really
that
cool.
Luke was great, but I don't think his character was elevated to the level of a legendary until maybe like
Yeah.
Well, one thing I will say about Luke is that he's a really good character in that he's almost completely oblivious about his father and about the Force. So it's almost like the one thing I like about Harry Potter as well is you're learning about the Force, you're learning about the universe with him. So it's not like feeding you information. Luke is as he's steadily learning about the Force and learning about himself. You're also learning about the extended universe around him.
That's actually a really smart tool in writing is when your main character is a fish out of water, and so you're not just shouting expository dialogue at the reader or the watcher. And so one of the scenes that I think that illustrates this perfectly, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire saga, was the cantina scene.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
People don't nowadays, I don't think, realize how great of a scene that is because imagine you're in 1977, right? This is like the first movie of this type that's came out. You get to see Tusken Raiders, Empire, yada yada. You walk into this bar and you see a plethora of exotic alien life just chilling out, drinking, smoking God knows what in the corner, and
Being
just
scum
like
and villainy.
just chilling out, you know. And it's like, and you can see Luke just like looking around, like weirded out because let's be real, his uncle never let him go to Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's a perfect vessel for the viewer, and the cantina scene just like is really what made Star Wars like it kind of hits you in the face, that scene, and I think it's really awesome.
You know,
Yeah, I agree because really Luke was kind of in the same spot as the Watchers because like he didn't really know what to expect going in there, and then we see them go in there, we're like, whoa, like that's cool.
I would have to say that even though he has very little screen time, you know, one of my favorite characters is Tarkin because he just
I was gonna
has
say the same thing.
because Tarkin
Love
just has
Tarkin.
he just has such a presence about him, and if you watch how the other Imperial officers react to Vader, they all seem kind of like afraid and like scared, but Tarkin just like he's not afraid of Vader at all, and like I don't know.
He just has an atmosphere about him.
Yeah, I think there are a few scenes where he actually like tells Vader no, and it's like he's super calm around Vader, and like you can tell that he's just like, you know, just
Especially looking back,
super together.
they
That's
must
the
have a ton of mutual respect, which makes you think of Tarkin as an amazing character as well.
Yeah.
One thing
Vader.
that I think that Tarkin embodies, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to very briefly talk about the sequels. I don't want to get into it, but in the sequels with the First Order, you can tell there's absolutely no power structure, and all the main officers just yell and scream all the time. Whereas
Yeah.
in
True.
Episode 4, we see Tarkin. He's very calm, very collected. He has an atmosphere about him. He doesn't need to yell and scream like Hux. And when he is able to talk to Vader and Vader takes orders from him, we can tell that there is a power structure in the Empire and that it is a legit government. And that's something I think
Yeah.
the First Order just feels like a cheap knockoff of the Empire because scenes like A
Yeah.
New Hope just nailed that so well. Anyways,
Mhm.
back to you guys. I didn't want to talk about that, but yeah.
Well, and also I really like the scene where it just shows the arrogance of Tarkin and the Empire when the rebels are assaulting the Death Star, and one of his advisors is like, "Do you want me to prepare your ship?" And he's like, "Evacuate in a moment of triumph." I think you overestimate their chances.
Yeah.
And it just shows like how the Empire thinks that the rebels have no chance, and that's kind of what gives, ironically, ironically that's what gives the rebels a chance.
Yeah, I think that probably the scene that I laughed the most at in that movie was when there was a slight clip of him just standing there. He just like looks to the side and then zooms out and it shows the Death Star just blow up. I
Yeah.
laughed so hard. I was like, oh man.
Lol.
And actually, now that we're here,
At this moment, he knew he screwed up.
let's talk about the trench run for a second. Ryan, you haven't talked a lot.
I mean,
I don't know. I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak and stuff. What are your thoughts on the trench run? Like, what were your first impressions watching that scene?
I was just like into it a lot because I was like, when I was little, like I savored every moment of the movie. Like,
Yeah. I don't know how you guys saw it, but as a 6-year-old, like that was intense, man. That was
Yeah.
like, oh shoot, everyone's freaking getting blown up. Luke's
Okay,
got
but
a
Yeah.
once Vader came in, I was legitimately on the edge of my seat. Like Vader, his ship just looked so cool. I just remember thinking that was amazing as a kid. And so
Oh,
Yeah.
that was fun.
I was like, dude, Vader has a ship. Oh crap!
when Vader pulled up to the scene, I just felt like, oh man, all of these rebels are screwed right now.
Yeah.
And when Han
Yeah.
came in at the end, that was just so amazing for his arc. He eventually decided to come back.
I think that was the biggest part of Han's character was when he came back to save Luke because
Like,
like
that's
you
when
know
his character really started taking a turn for the best.
because he kind of has his own agenda. Like he's kind of just doing his own thing, but he has he has just enough good in him. Like his moral compass is just straight enough to point him towards doing what's right, and I think that was super cool.
Yeah, I agree. I remember back to the scene where they were blowing up the Death Star. That was, I remember I was laying down watching it. Like as soon as they started, as soon as it started happening, I sat right up. You could ask Peyton. Like I sat
He
right
did.
up, and I was just like, I knew that Luke would survive, obviously, but
Yeah, well,
like
yeah.
I had no idea what else would happen.
Dude, doesn't Luke's friend die? He was like, dude, I'll tell you all the stories when we get over there.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so
Yeah,
sad. When I was a little kid, I was like, what? Did he
I
die?
know.
Are you sure? Was that him?
Yeah.
Oh no! I
I
was so
know.
sad.
When Porkins dies, that's even sadder.
Porkins.
Yeah, F in the chat.
Oh, hold on. This is kind of off topic, but one story I have of originally watching A New Hope is this wasn't when I first watched it for the first time, but when I was like very little, I think like 3. Okay, so our dad like had ingrained Star Wars into our childhood even before we watched it, so he would just like tell us stories, but just enough to keep us interested, not enough to give. I knew about R2D2 and stuff, right? One
Mhm.
time he was watching it in the basement, with DJ or someone.
I know
I
this is
walked in
with
right
we were at like a family gathering or something. I think we're at.
Yeah, I walked in right when R2 got shocked by the Jawas, and I just started bawling.
He started crying, dude. He
No,
got.
I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead. At the end.
It was, yeah. I remember Dad was like consoling him, like, no, gosh, it's okay. He's fine. He's fine.
So yeah, I lied earlier. That's my first experience with New Hope.
That's funny.
Wow.
Epic.
That's yeah.
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 Yeah, I forgot to mention R2 and 3PO. They're great in this movie. They're awesome.
Great in every
Yeah.
movie, honestly.
They are.
People say that
They
3PO is
are.
annoying. I kind of get that, but
Part
I
of his
mean,
character, though. He's not
he's
annoying in the same
annoying.
way as Jar Jar, though.
He's annoying in a good way, though.
yeah, like I think he's well written.
Yeah.
It's not like Jar Jar.
And I think too, especially in A New Hope, his existence actually serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Like he's like propelling the story forward. Like when he goes to Tatooine with R2, like that's like
Because
part of the
who's gonna
plot.
translate for R2?
Yeah. And then like I feel like in like the prequels and stuff, like he's just kind of hanging around, not really doing anything.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, like one thing that was
Just chilling
bugging me
in
was like
Padme's
3PO
sleep.
had absolutely no reason to be in the prequels besides, hey, look,
Yeah.
Anakin built him. How cool is
Yeah, I
that?
know. Yeah.
You know, well, it's not to get too much off topic, but I saw this one meme. Like, you know how in Rise of Skywalker, how 3PO is like, my programming prevents me from from reading
dumb.
Sith, and it was like, look it, I built this new protocol droid to help Mom, and it was Anakin from Phantom Menace, and he was like, wait, just gotta update his coding so he can't read Sith in accordance to Republic law.
Yeah, I know.
I think that the one way they'd be able to write that off is be like when he was in the hands of the rebels, they made him. Even that wouldn't make sense.
Like maybe when he
Because-
was like a
nothing was
handmaiden.
helpful, he could read Sith.
Maybe when he was a handmaiden for Padme or handmaid.
Yeah.
Idris.
Dude, that's
He
like
was-
that is like, as in the words of our president, the worst deal in the history of deals ever. So
Possibly ever.
so Padme gives Anakin a super helpful astromech droid that can hack into things, fly ships, and all that kind of stuff. Where 3PO walks around and can't make a fist properly.
Okay,
No.
we're getting way off topic. Let's
Worst
get
deal
back
in the
to
history of
Yeah.
deals. Okay, anyways, New Hope. So, shoot, I forget what we were talking about beforehand.
We're talking about the trench run.
The trench
Trench
run,
run,
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go into actually I kind of wanted to talk about the introduction of each character because I think that every time
yeah.
they bring
I
in a
wanted to
new
bring up
character,
Han
they
earlier,
do it
yeah.
really well. So we see the R2 and 3PO come in as the ship's getting attacked by
Mhm.
by the way, opening shot of that movie is amazing. You see like the camera come in, and then there's like the ship that comes in overhead, and then the giant freaking Imperial ship to kind of symbolize how desperate the rebels are with like how giant of a looming threat the Empire is. Anyways, then we see R2 and 3PO who are kind of able to catch us up on what's going on in a way that doesn't seem forced. Vader walks in. We get a cool introduction to him. We later see Luke after he's buying the droids, and we kind of get we see his uncle first, and then we see Luke. We kind of get he's just a little farm boy thing, and then we see he's our main character. The first time we see Obi-Wan is when he's impersonating the Kayat dragon. Great
Mhm.
guy. Han's great introduction. Also, what I always liked was that you notice that Obi-Wan's talking to Chewie in the bar, and then they go over to see Han. I don't know.
Mhm.
Cool detail.
One thing I will say about Obi-Wan, the introduction to his character, and just his character throughout the whole film, is that as a character, I'll say this with Yoda as well, but as a character, they don't make him overly like powerful. That he just does subtle things like he doesn't have to force his way into situations, like when he cut off
Unintended.
like when he cut off the guy's arm in the canteen, like has like the potential to be like this like warrior, but he's just like this. He's just become this hermit. He's just. No, I'm rambling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll do like
No,
some
I
He has this
agree.
quiet power
Like,
about him. You know what I'm saying?
the Jedi mind trick
Yeah.
was like a big moment where like
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, this force sounds pretty cool. And then later on when he's in the Death Star, he's turning off the tractor beams. The
Mhm.
stormtroopers come in and he's like, what's going on? Is this another drill or whatever? He just kind of like flicks his wrist in a certain way, and the stormtroopers go, hey, what was that? And like go off and do something.
Yeah.
He's
Just
quietly
little
the most powerful character in the movie.
Just little
Yeah.
things like that helped him. And that brings me to the lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, which people kind of crap on that fight because of how dumb it looks nowadays. But to be fair, Lucas wanted it to be way cooler, only they physically couldn't because of the restraints they had with the lightsaber props and just the technology at the time.
Alec Guinness
Yeah.
being 90 years old.
Like Lucas actually wanted to do something pretty cool, but they just couldn't. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm pretty sure in the original cut, I think they edited this out, but in the original cut, you could see like the wire going down his robe for what like the lightsaber prop was working. I'm pretty sure they did some clever with lighting to make it look like they were glowing where they weren't. I don't know. That they just did cool stuff back then.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the Anakin and Obi-Wan duel in Episode 3 does it justice. So it's just I just kind of address what happens because of the fight, and I don't so much focus on the choreography of the fight.
I think that it's pretty cool how the prequels ended with Vader versus Obi-Wan, and the originals began with Vader versus Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like poetry, it rhymes.
I really liked yeah, like kind of like Peyton said in a way, but I don't look at it as the choreography. I look at it as more like what the fight means to the Star Wars plot, and
Yeah.
like
I agree, and I think that I would even go as far as to defend Vader versus Obi-Wan in Episode 3, because if you both train in an art form of combat
Mhm.
for the majority of your life, and then
Especially with each other.
so well, and you know each other's fighting style so well, it's gonna turn out to be a sort of a dance. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I think that, for example, the Kylo versus Rey fight in Episode 7 was actually really well choreographed, and you can tell neither of them had no idea what the other was going to do, and they were both pretty rugged in their fighting style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And another thing to say about Obi-Wan's death affecting the plot is that's really when Luke started to take Force training seriously. Like, that impacted him in such a way. That's when he really started to hate Darth Vader. That's what kind of made it such a huge reveal
Yeah.
in Episode 5, because he thought that he killed his father and Obi-Wan, which is like the only mentor he ever knew.
I have something
Yeah.
cool to
Yeah.
talk about that scene, but I'm gonna save that for the next podcast because
We definitely talked about that next.
I mean, I don't think that fight aged as well as they would have liked, but
Yeah.
I think it did its job. I mean, as a 6-year-old, I didn't care. I just thought, oh, Obi-Wan's fighting Vader. You know?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it does look it looks pretty silly nowadays, if I'm being
And
honest.
I think
Yeah.
maybe they did it a little over the top, but if you I watched him and I watched the movies in chronological order, which I wish I didn't. I've gone back and watched them in
It's not bad in chronological order. I make fun of it just as kind of a joke. It's not.
yeah.
It's not in
Well,
bad order.
I've gone back and I've watched them in release date order, and I think after watching them in chronological order, you can understand why Vader is a little cautious because Obi-Wan cut off like almost the entirety of his body and left him to burn. So you can understand why Vader's a little cautious. Like, yeah, is he maybe a little over the top cautious? But I think there's definitely reason for Vader to be like, yeah, I don't want to die.
I think there's a huge
Yeah.
advantage. That's like one of the main things that I thought was such a cool thing about watching the prequels first and then the original trilogy was that their duel. I was able to look past the choreography because of the weight of it, and like because I was fresh off of Revenge of the Sith, so I was like, oh, like for me they just had a duel, so I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the next time they saw each other, so it was like so cool for me.
That's actually a pretty cool
Yeah, I agree.
perspective. See,
It's really cool.
Yeah.
that was kind of the opposite of mine.
Yeah.
The way I saw it was that I had seen Obi-Wan fight him and stuff like that, and I had seen Obi-Wan train Luke and all this kind of stuff. And so when we went to the prequels, I was kind of able to see how that all happened. It was a prequel,
Yeah.
obviously. So I was looking at like, oh my gosh, like
I think with
it made
Obi-Wan,
me look at the movies in a different light. I'm still glad I watched them in release date order, but like I think that Revenge of the Sith helped me like see it in a kind of a different light. I love how
Yeah.
in it's kind of a side note. I love how in when he's talking to Luke, he name drops the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yep.
was like, "What was that?" And then Luke is like, I'm not sure if you guys are ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it."
Your kids are gonna love it.
Mm-hmm.
what was I gonna say? Thing about the prequels that is really cool for me. I think we talked about this a little bit last night, but especially with Obi-Wan, like I said, he does have this like quiet power about him, but the way the role his character had left so much to be desired when it came to like action and like having like especially with that fight being more or less lackluster.
Yeah.
Seeing Obi-Wan in action for me when I first saw that was so cool because we only see him as this like homeless hermit guy. This hermit guy who's just really old. This is after like PTSD from the Clone Wars and stuff. So he's like just a shell of Obi-Wan, and being able to see him in the prequels
In
go
his
crazy,
prime.
really cool for me as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, rest in peace, Alec Guinness, man.
Yeah, for real.
And I wish that he was alive today so he could be in the Kenobi series that's coming out. God knows when that's coming out, but that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much time we have left, maybe like 10, 20 minutes. But I think that we should go around and like say where A New Hope ranks on our lists. For me, it's my second favorite. It's the kind of movie that I can just go back and watch anytime. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 10. And yeah, it's my second favorite in the saga.
All right, you go ahead.
It's definitely either like second or third for me. It's an amazing movie. So
For me, I would say on my list is probably number 3. It would be number 2, but I, for some reason, have a soft spot for episode 6. Not sure why. Maybe this because as a kid, that was like the finale. Like that was it for me until I watched the prequel.
yeah.
I kind of have this emotional attachment to it, but it's definitely it's interchangeable with 6 or even 5. I would put it in my 2 or 3, like Ryan said, for sure.
I would say number 3 as well. I definitely again like Revenge of the Sith was probably my favorite. Empire Strikes Back I like that a little bit better, but yeah, I would probably number 3.
For me, depending on how you look at it, it's either second place because Empire and Revenge of the Sith are tied for first, or third place because right now I can't put one above the other for Empire or Revenge of the Sith. But A New Hope is a fantastic movie, and I think you're right. It's like I can go back and watch it anytime. It really never gets old. And like there's not really anything that keeps me from watching it. Like it's one of the movies where I would just be like, yeah, I'll sit down and watch A New Hope, even if I like watched it yesterday.
I kind of see it as like Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like one of those movies that parents are going to show their kids and they're going to show their kids. And it's going to be one of those movies that's like infinitely rewatchable,
I
Like,
think
how many
that's
times have you guys
Yeah.
seen Curse of the Black Pearl? Like, I've seen it like 20 times.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I've seen I think I've seen it once or twice.
Those are
I've
rookie
seen it
numbers. You
at
gotta bump
least
those
3
numbers.
times.
Rookie
Wow.
I
numbers.
think
You gotta bump it.
that really just speaks to the quality of this movie that 3 years later now we can still say that yeah we would watch this anytime.
And this is a
Yeah.
new generation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 16, and I'm the oldest person here, and we love this movie, and it came out in the 70s. Like, that says a
Right.
lot.
I think that this might be rare for us, but like it is a slower paced movie, so in the generation that's constantly needing to be stimulated, for it to be so good that we're like on the edge of our seats. Most of the scenes is just really incredible that it's been able to hold up, especially for this generation.
And
Mhm.
I've seen it enough
Yeah.
times
It's
where
true.
like it doesn't phase me as much, but I think it still stands the test of time. Wait, who hasn't gone yet? By the way, I think we cut off
Me.
Rady.
I'd
Yeah.
say for me it's either second or third. Episode 5 and episode 3 have always been like just so good. I love watching those. But yeah, I'd say either second or third just because of um how it's really it's
Those are like universally
it's
considered the
really
best
just a
ones.
great movie,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's well made. Yeah.
Well written, well acted, well edited.
I do have some
Good
problems
score.
though. Uh, sometimes when like Leia's talking, I'm pretty sure they messed up and did like some dubs after the movie and like inserted them in, but you can tell she's way too close to the microphone, and it just kind
Yeah.
of throws me out sometimes. I think
Yeah,
Carrie
some
Fisher was 19, and I think that out of the 3 originals, her acting was the worst in that one. But she got better, definitely. I think
Yeah.
Leia's also
Yeah.
really good.
For episode 4 to be almost like a test run, there was a lot of things that were going to be developed in 5 that makes you really appreciate the characters in 4 more. As a standalone film, 4 I definitely had problems, but they were definitely ironed out in the next couple films.
Yeah.
I think that Han
Mhm.
stayed as good the entire trilogy, but I think that Luke and Leia really started to shine in 5.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, a point I think we haven't talked about yet that we can maybe get to here is John Williams' score.
It is my favorite score in the
Oh my
series.
goodness.
Because
I admit, probably for nostalgia reasons, but even so.
imagine like seeing it in theaters, and you just like, just a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then,
Oh,
dun, 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 dun,
Okay.
dun, 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 and then also Luke's theme when he's looking out into the suns.
Binary Sunset.
Yeah, I love Leia's theme. Leia's theme is
I get
fantastic.
chills just thinking about that. Every time I see that, it just gives me chills. It's one of the best scenes in any movie ever.
Leia's theme is
Yeah.
also great. I think that's one of the best themes John Williams have written, actually.
Oh my God.
Well,
Oh.
because I think it's one of those movies where the score really enhances it, and like that's one of my major gripes with episode 9 is that I feel like there's just like too much going
Yeah.
on, and
Yeah.
too much music, and I feel like it
There's-
doesn't really enhance
Music
the
was-
plot.
Music was empty, right? Because in the originals and even the prequels, when the music adds that much, the story relates to the music, it's just like beautiful song and dance between the two. That makes it really just like an art form.
Well, John
Yeah.
Williams is such a genius, and whoever edited those movies placed the music well, which I appreciate so much.
Yeah, they know when to put music, and they know when to keep music out. Like during Vader and Obi-Wan's duel.
Yeah.
I'm
Vader-
glad they didn't, cause like I feel like also they did that in episode 1, like when Qui-Gon was about to die. There wasn't any music, like Duel of the Fates stopped, and it just kind of like leaves you on the edge of your seat, like, oh boy, something bad's about to happen.
Dude,
You know?
I remember sitting there and I'm like, wait, is Qui-Gon gonna die? No.
Boom, boom.
And that goes back to what I said about the music adding so much to the plot. Like the music fits so well with the plot. It can make a less intense scene feel just so much more. Give it so much more weight based on how the
Remember
music.
the
acting
Death
with
Star
the scene.
escape when they were like trying to get back on the Falcon? The music is really good there. That is some good music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
Some
I think
also
that
sorry, good.
I think that people have made like they've edited movies to like not have music, so it's like this movie without music,
Right.
and I think that I I'd honestly kind of like to see what that would be like without music. I think it would be a whole different experience.
I mean, I feel like
I
a
agree.
half empty. I feel like I'd be eating
Yeah.
something half empty.
And I think that speaks to just how good the score is. Like if you take the music out, it's just like something's missing from here. You know, it's
Yeah.
which just it shows how much the score enhances the movie and like how much it adds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John Williams is retired now, which is too bad. But he gave us
Hey, he went out on a
nine
Star
good
Wars
scores.
movie, so that's pretty awesome. Let's
9
be
good
real.
scores and 6 good movies, dude. Arguably 4.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that every Star Wars movie had a great score. I can't think of a bad one really.
The thing about the sequels, and I think Peyton said about the music being empty, that there was like almost 30 songs I think for episode 9 that were original songs that he composed. So little of them were used.
Yeah.
None
They
of
relied too
the
heavily on
music.
nostalgia.
It's up to the editors and like to put together the music. John will it just makes you like when the sequels to the songs when they feel so empty and leave so much more to be desired. It really
I'm gonna look up audio editor for A New Hope real quick.
it really just makes you appreciate how well the originals and the prequels the scores together and edit it into the film. Make it
Yeah.
most-
And I'll say this for the Revenge of the Sith video, but my favorite score in a Star Wars movie is probably Revenge of the Sith, and my favorite piece is Battle of the Heroes.
All the
Yeah.
Heroes is amazing.
Yeah.
Other one,
But
'cause
Okay, I can't find the editor for New Hope. I'm looking on Google, but I don't see it.
I love in the prequels the subtle bits of the melody from Vader's theme.
oh
Plays
yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's just like things like that. If you left that out, it'd be like, okay, here's Anakin standing there, right? If you put that into it, it just alludes so much to him turning to the dark and just adds so much more to the plot.
Which is also why you watch the originals first, is so you can look back and go, "Oh, I see where this was going."
Right? When you see the connotations of the different.
Also, this is a kind of off topic of what we're talking about right now, but one thing I read a while ago was that George Lucas, he made Episode 4, New Hope. It was just called Star Wars at the time.
Yeah.
He released it. He didn't think it was gonna come of anything. He was just driving in his car with somebody. I think he was in a taxi or something. He assumed the movie was kind of going to be a failure. Everyone told him it was going to be a failure. No one was going to watch it. They said he was driving in this car, right? He looked over at this theater and was like, "Wow, that's a lot of people lining up to see the movie in that theater. Like, there's like crap tons of people outside this theater waiting to get in." And he looked over, and on the sign it said, "Now showing Star Wars."
yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty insane. And then that just like and that fan base has I've more or less stuck with Star Wars for 40 some years now. So
And thank God it was a success because the next 2 movies and the sequels were just so dang good. And
We've
I
gotten
think
so many good movies, shows,
Bro,
books, video games, so much media out of that one movie. This
Again,
movie
that-
started it all.
that really speaks to episode 4's quality as well, especially considering that they didn't expect it to be much. They probably had a very limited budget as well. But for that,
Yeah.
for one of the greatest movies ever to come out of that, is so amazing. And I think that's really why they were able to take that extra leap with 5 and even 6.
You guys know that like
Yeah.
every other country tried making their own version of Star Wars. Like after 1977, so many movie studios, so many countries came out with some kind of space opera, fantasy, sci-fi thing featuring a black armored villain, like a Vader knockoff, basically. Like Star
Yeah.
Wars,
Yeah.
it was like a cultural icon, and it was really this movie that started it all. And we have this movie to thank for such an amazing franchise.
Yeah. Seriously.
I think I read one time that Lucas went to a screening of it in Japan, and after the movie, like there was just like silence, and so I thought, oh boy, people don't like it here. But then like after he left, he found out that silence was like the greatest compliment they could give a movie. So
Wow.
like it resonated with it, like not just in America. Like it's a worldwide thing.
I mean, it was like I think Peyton said it earlier. It was just such a new frontier for cinema.
Absolutely.
Like it pioneered the way for so many other movies. Like The
Yeah.
New Hope is what inspired countless generations of filmmakers. Not countless, a good number of generations of film and film filmmaker. I remember
Yeah.
hearing Gareth Edwards talk, the director of Rogue One, in an interview, and he said that he was getting in a car with his dad, and he's like, "Where are we going, Dad?" And his dad went, "We're gonna go see like what's the best movie of all time, or something along those lines." And then he was blown away by it, and he's like watched that tape of A New Hope like every day for like years, and we got Rogue One out of it. So thanks,
And
Gareth.
also,
Best Disney
we
Star
got
Wars
the
movie.
Indiana Jones series out of this because this movie really kind of launched the trajectory of Lucas's career because we got a bunch of other movies that he made. John Williams as well as a composer.
Hmm.
There's just a
Yeah.
lot of good things that came out of for
That's true. It's a good point.
What I like to say is, I mean, I've never said this before, but I probably will start saying it. It kind of kickstarted a new, how do I say it?
breed of
Like
Style?
a new life for cinema. You know?
Yeah. Movies kind of went from being like this more casual thing to being like, oh shoot, people can actually make some stuff with this. You know?
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Lucas really did like raise the bar for how movies were made. It's like, all right, your movie's good. Well, how good is it compared to Star Wars?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Star Wars is always going to be on the Mount Rushmore of cinema, at least in my eyes.
like regardless of
Mhm.
your opinion on it, you cannot like ignore its value to how we view movies today. Like even if you freaking hate
Okay.
the movie, it's probably inspired your favorite movies. So, unless their favorite movies came out in like 1923 or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. I think we can wrap it up here unless someone else has something to say.
Nope.
I think we're.
I think, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
I think we're good on time. This is about 40 to 50 minutes, I think. So that's plenty.
Yep.
I'm gonna put this on YouTube. I'm gonna put this on Podbean, and yeah, we're gonna do one
Yeah.
of these on every Star Wars episode. I'm gonna release this on the birthday of A New Hope. Happy birthday, New Hope!
Happy
One
birthday.
of the greatest movies of all
Happy
time.
birthday.
Happy
Hope.
birthday.
Happy birthday, New Hope.
Hope you don't die next year.
Wait, what?
End it
That
there.
applause to kill.
End it on CJ saying, "Wait, what?"
Wait, what?
Well,
Hey,
So-
A New Hope, if you're watching this, we love you. And happy birthday.
All right,
Yeah.
so we'll see you later to the two people watching this.
Yeah.
Empire next time.
Force be with you.
And stay on the low ground.
Always.
Always on the low
On the
ground.
low ground.